Move the railing, Daniel. It violates sightline uniformity. Karen Pike's voice clipped across the cul-de-sac like a stapler. Clipboard hugged tight, HOA badge flashing. She toe-tapped the edge of the temporary handrail I'd bolted to our front steps for Lena. "It's for my wife," I said. "She's 31 weeks. The steps are uneven." Lena steadied herself on the newel post, one hand low on her belly, breath shallow. The late sun slid off the cast-iron bell mounted on the brick entrance, throwing a shadow that cut our yard like a gavel mark. Karen smiled a flat, lemon-sour smile. Then she should use the community walkway like everyone else. She flipped a form. Second notice, fines accrue daily. You can't call a safety rail a cosmetic offense. I kept my voice clipped like hers. IBC 1011.11. Guards where there's a drop over 30 inches, which we have. She stepped closer. I smelled hairspray and cold coffee. "Do not cite codes to me on my street." "Our street," I said. "Your non-compliant rail is an eyesore. It keeps my family safe." Evan Cho paused at the sidewalk with his spaniel, caught halfway between hello and retreat. "Everything okay?" he asked, voice thin. Karen ignored him. "Remove it by tonight." Her pen tapped, tap, tap, like a metronome speeding up. "No," I said, her eyes cut to Lena. "Then don't come crying when the board escalates." Lena took one step down. The riser wobbled. The rail took her weight, metal humming against my palm. Karen's mouth twitched. "See?" I said softly. "Uneven." Karen's heel scraped on concrete. "You people think rules—" The dog barked. Karen jerked, lost balance, and in an instant she lashed out to catch herself, except her foot snapped forward, connecting with Lena's belly. A dull thud, Lena's gasp like paper crumpling, and the world narrowed to the sound of the bell's shadow running across my shoes. "Hey!" Evan shouted. The spaniel yelped. Lena folded, clutching low, eyes wide and glassy. I was under her, arms out, the handrail rattling. "Breathe, breathe." My voice shook. Sweat broke cold along my spine. Karen froze, the pen falling, clattering, her own breath jagged. She stepped. "Back up," I said, every word sanded down to a rasp. "Back up now." Sirens were still a dream in the distance, but somewhere on the brick gate, a wind puffed and the bell nudged, metal throat whispering. Evan hovered, white as chalk. Should I call?" I said, and he did, hands trembling, eyes flicking between me and Karen. Karen swallowed. "It was an accident." "Tell her that," I said, nodding at my wife. Lena pressed fingers to her belly. "I'm okay," she lied, voice thin. Karen's jaw worked. She looked small suddenly, standing in the seam of shadow where the bell's line cut down. "You can't threaten me for enforcing—" "I'm not threatening," I said. "I'm holding my wife together." Evan whispered to dispatch. The wind kept moving. The bell made a sound like a cleared throat. "What would you do if your neighbor weaponized the rules against your family and then crossed a line you can't uncross? Tell me in the comments and subscribe, because this gets worse before it gets better. Let me back up and tell you how this started. I'm Daniel Rios, licensed structural engineer and former Army combat engineer. I design quiet things for a living, stair stringers that don't squeak, retaining walls that keep soil where it belongs. After a deployment, I promised myself I'd build a life with fewer alarms. We bought the corner lot on Alder Court because of the old sycamores and that cast iron bell at the entrance, a relic from the quarry that used to sit where the lake is now. The HOA calls it the steward's bell. They ring it at meetings like they invented order. Lena and I moved in last spring, unboxing Nursey paint swatches and a second-hand glider chair. After losing a pregnancy 2 years ago, we did everything by the book this time. Appointments, vitamins, slow walks at dusk. The steps to our porch had a weird rise pattern, 7 inches, then 8.5, then a chipped edge that turned your foot. I flagged it on day 1. The developer said the porch was within tolerance. My tape measure begged to differ. First, I emailed the board, polite, with photos, citing the basic code section, and offering to provide a detail for free. Karen replied with a boilerplate. Exterior alterations require prior approval. She CC'd the compliance inbox. I wasn't altering the exterior. I was trying to keep the exterior from altering us. Then came the door color variance citation. Apparently the off-the-shelf paint we'd chosen was 3 points too warm on their palette. I repainted. Lena laughed it off, then didn't, because it wasn't funny. Next we got a warning for a temporary structure on the side yard, a sandbag I'd laid against the downspout splash to keep runoff from carving the mulch. I sent a picture of the eroded bed, asked about drainage standards, and, this is on me, quoted the subdivision plat. That's when I landed on Karen's clipboard. I met her the first time by the bell, where she'd set up a folding table for courtesy chats. She had that HOA cadence. You know the one. Like everything is both a favor and a scolding. She called me sir and smiled like it stung her teeth. She said she preferred uniformity. I said I preferred safety. We shook hands and disagreed. When the handrail arrived, galvanized, 2 anchors into concrete, I filed the form after installing it. Yes, out of order. I can reverse engineer a slab under a hospital, but I can't predict pregnancy stairs. The second notice came the next morning, printed bold. Lena taped it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a peach. "We'll fix it," she said. "We always do. Except sometimes the fix is someone else changing, and sometimes the fix starts when something breaks." The ambulance wailed in, red strobes licking the brick gate where the steward's bell hung like a mute witness. Gravel popped under the tires. Evan stood off to the side with his spaniel tucked in his arms, eyes lifted when the medics jogged past. "Ma'am, how far along?" one asked. 31 weeks, Lena said, breath steadier now but thin. "Any bleeding, cramping, just pressure?" I gave the same answers twice because my voice worked better than hers. They eased her onto a gurney. The ratcheting clicks sounded like someone loading a decision you can't unload. Karen hovered at the curb, arms crossed tight enough to strangle an apology. "I can give a statement," she said. "Later," I said. She lifted her chin. "The board will need an incident report." The rear doors thumped shut. I climbed in. Evan stepped forward like he might say something, then didn't. His mouth opened and closed, a fish stranded in air. The doors sealed his face to a reflection. In the ER, fluorescent hum turned seconds into chalk marks. The monitor beeped. Lena's hand gripped mine, warm and damp. A nurse pressed gel onto her belly. The Doppler whispered, then the heartbeat chattered in. Rapid, insistent, impossibly brave. Relief slid through me, cold to warm. "We'll monitor for a few hours," the nurse said. "Watch for tightening." "Thank you," Lena breathed. When she drifted, I opened my phone, every engineer habit snapping into place. Photos of the steps, close-ups of the risers. I expanded the image where the second riser met the chipped edge, 8.5 inches. I drew a quick diagram on the Notes app. Flight height, tread depth, nosing projection. I typed IBC 1011.5.2 from memory. Then I cross-checked our CCRs, Architectural Guidelines, Section 4.2, Safety and structural compliance with applicable code is mandatory for all exterior improvements. I underlined in my head, mandatory, not optional, for all. A text pinged from an unknown number. "This is Evan, Spaniel guy." "I'm sorry. Are you at St. Mary's? Do you need me to bring anything?" I typed back. "We're okay for now, thanks." His 3 dots appeared, paused, vanished. Another text arrived. Compliance notice, handrail violation, 75-day, effective immediately. Time stamped 12 minutes after the ambulance left. Karen's signature block glowed like a neon no. I stared until the screen went black. When they cleared Lena to go home, it was near midnight. The cul-de-sac had the late, hushed emptiness, the kind that hears your keys. I left Lena dozing and went back outside with a tape, a level, and my headlamp. The neighborhood smelled like wet bark and someone's leftover grilled onions. The beam cut a white path up each riser. 7, 8.5, 7.25, 7. Not a stair, an ankle, trap. My level rocked on the top tread, bubble wandering. I videotaped the wobble. The handrail hummed when I pressed into it, doing the job it was born to do. Working late? Karen's voice drifted from across the street, where her porch light framed her like a figure on a postage stamp. She wore a robe and that badge, as if she slept with it pinned to her. "Documenting," I said. "This harassment will not help you." She nodded at my phone. Posting videos is prohibited by our social media policy. I'm not posting, I said. I'm proving. Proving what, Daniel? She stepped onto her own porch, hand curling around a rail. It was stained wood, pretty, with balusters spaced so wide a toddler could wriggle through. The top height made my eye twitch. 33 inches, maybe less. I didn't need the tape to know. Proving our steps are out of code, and that the rail is necessary. Codes are for builders, she said. Not homeowners. Don't talk to me about code. Talk to me about forms. Section 4.2, I said. Mandatory compliance with code. She blinked, a tiny flinch. Then the chin lifted. That section is about aesthetic consistency. I wrote it. Maybe read it, I said. She exhaled through her nose, sharp. Fine, accrual continues at midnight. I'll appeal, I said. Denied, she snapped, fast as a mousetrap. That's not how appeals work, I said. You know who taught me process? The Army Corps. They love forms. They also love chain of authority. Is that a threat? It's a reminder, I said. Process serves safety, not the other way around. Her eyes flicked to my tape in a kind of reflex, like a dog noticing the leash that controls it. You engineers think the world is a problem to solve. I hope so, I said. Because it is. She went inside. The door whispered shut. I circled the block to calm the mad electricity in my limbs. At the gate, the steward's bell hung slightly canted. A hairline crack spidered from the bracket down the post. I ran my fingers over it. Rust dusted my skin. The bell wasn't just ugly. It was loose. The mounting bolts sunk wrong, washers biting into soft wood. Someone had over-torqued and split the grain. Someone had ignored a load path to get a picture in the newsletter. I took more photos. Measurements. In the distance, sprinklers hissed in the median like snakes giving advice. Back inside, I opened the HOA portal on my laptop. The Architectural Review Committee, ARC, minutes lay there. A PDF graveyard. One line snagged my eye. Variance granted, Lot 7 porch. Step design approved as built, non-conforming rise accommodated due to aesthetic elevation. Lot 7 was us, stamped 6 months before closing, approved by Chair K. Pike. Evan texted again. I was there. I'll write what I saw if you need it. Also, don't be mad. Karen asked me to submit a statement. I haven't replied. Sorry, I typed, thank you. He wrote, I just want peace here. I did too. But peace built on a tilted riser isn't peace. It's prelude. I shut the laptop and stood at the window. The bell's shadow lay across the street like a hairline fracture through the whole subdivision. I could feel the plan forming. Not a threat, not rage, just the click-click of pieces aligning, document the non-compliance, expose the variance Karen rubber-stamped, use the language she worshipped to show her she'd broken it. Professional observation first, then the records. I slid the tape back into my pocket. Okay, I whispered to the dark. We'll do this my way. The morning after the hospital felt wrong. Too bright, too quiet. Lena moved slow, one hand braced against the counter, waiting for the kettle to click. She smiled when she caught me watching, but it was that brittle, I don't want you to worry smile. Doctor says I'm fine, she murmured. Just bruised. The baby's fine too. I wanted to believe her, wanted the sound of fine to mean more than survival. I kissed her temple. I'll handle the HOA today. You rest. Outside, the air carried that damp cedar smell after sprinklers. The cul-de-sac shimmered with a sheen of false calm. Same trimmed hedges, same tidy driveways. Only the steward's bell hung crooked now. One bolt pulled half free, like the whole neighborhood leaned with it. At 9 sharp, my inbox pinged, HOA disciplinary hearing, 4 p.m. Location, Community Hall. Chair, Karen Pike. No surprise. She'd weaponized procedure faster than a field sergeant with a rule book. By noon, I'd assembled my packet. Photos, measurements, excerpts from building code. I tucked it into a manila folder labeled Rio's Appeal, Lot 7. I didn't plan to raise my voice. I planned to prove. As I locked the door, I spotted Evan across the street with his spaniel, pretending to examine a bush that didn't need examining. You headed to work? He asked, not looking up. HOA meeting. Oh, he swallowed. Listen, about yesterday. Not your fault. He shifted, the leash tangling around his wrist. She asked me to write that your wife tripped. I waited. I didn't, he said finally. But I didn't write what actually happened either. I froze. I studied him, the awkward half smile, the way his eyes darted anywhere but mine. You saw her kick, I said softly. He winced. It looks like she... Yeah. But if I say that, Karen will make my life hell. She's already warning people about community division. You know she runs the landscaping contracts, right? I know. He sighed, voice small. I've got a kid applying for college, can't afford to get blacklisted here. You get what I mean? I did. Fear was the HOA's fertilizer. Just keep your head down, I said. For now. He nodded, relieved and ashamed all at once. As he walked off, I noticed the dog looking back. At me, ears flattened, like it understood guilt better than its owner. At 4, the community hall smelled of coffee, carpet glue, and printed authority. Folding chairs in rows, a projector buzzing. Karen sat centered at the table, gavel in hand, a real one this time. Her hair was perfectly shellacked. To her right, 2 board members scrolled their phones. To her left, a man in a pastel tie typed minutes like his life depended on accuracy. Mr. Rios, Karen began, voice crisp. We're here regarding repeated violations of design standards and failure to remove an unapproved structure. By structure, you mean the safety rail? I said. By structure, I mean any alteration visible from the street, she snapped. I set my folder on the table. May I present evidence? A sigh rippled through the room, but she gestured. Briefly, I laid out photos, measurements, date stamps, close-ups of the uneven risers. IBC section 1011.5.2 requires consistent riser height. Ours range from 7 to 8.5 inches. Section 1011.11 requires a guardrail at drops exceeding 30 inches. The HOA Architectural Guidelines, Section 4.2, state compliance with applicable code is mandatory. Her lips pressed thin. The board previously granted a variance. Yes, I said. Signed by you, 6 months ago. That flicker again, the quick involuntary flinch before her expression reset. That variance addressed aesthetic elevation, not safety. The document doesn't specify that. It says, as built. I slid over the copy from the HOA portal. You approved a non-compliant porch without noting safety conditions, which means you authorized a code violation. Murmurs stirred. One board member, Linda, retired teacher type, leaned forward. Is that true? Karen's smile cracked. We rely on the builder's certification. Then why deny a homeowner correcting it? I asked. You find me for compliance. Her eyes hardened. You performed work without approval. I performed work to prevent injury. That's not your call, she said. Authority lies with the board. I held her stare. Authority doesn't override safety law. She slammed the gavel. Enough. The violation stands. Remove the rail within 72 hours or fines double. Something inside me clicked. Not rage, just precision. Then I'll appeal to the County Building and Safety Division. They'll want to see the variance you signed. The room quieted. Karen's pen froze mid-note. Linda coughed lightly. We can table this, perhaps? Karen's jaw flexed. Fine. Tabled pending review. She stood, gavel rapping once. Meeting adjourned. Outside, the sky was turning that bruised purple of early dusk. Evan waited near the flagpole, shifting from foot to foot. How'd it go? Tabled, I said. For now. He rubbed his neck. She's calling you hostile on the neighborhood. App. Figures. He hesitated. I want to help, but I can't testify. Didn't ask you to, I said. Just don't delete what you saw. He nodded, guilt heavy in his shoulders. You're poking the hornet's nest. Then maybe it's time someone fixed the nest, I said, heading toward the parking lot. Behind me, the steward's bell caught the dying light, that hairline crack glinting like a secret waiting to split wide open. 700 words. The next morning, my phone buzzed before dawn. Email from the HOA. Notice of Safety Violation Review Committee. Attendance required. They were fast. Too fast. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, counting rotations. Lena slept on her side, hand over her stomach, soft breaths. The bruise had turned yellow-brown, fading like a bad dream, but the memory of that kick still lived behind my eyes. By 7, I was out in the driveway, thermos in hand, recording fresh footage of the porch. The morning light hit every imperfection, the chipped riser, the uneven tread, the faint scrape from Karen's shoe. My level clinked as I set it down. I wasn't just documenting anymore, I was preparing for a case. Evan's garage door rattled open. He stood in sweats, eyes puffy from half sleep. "You're at it early," he said. "Deadline motivates," I answered. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Karen posted on the HOA feed, said you're creating a hostile environment. Some neighbors are talking about a special vote to suspend your privileges." "Privileges?" I scoffed. "You mean using my own steps?" He winced. "She's got people scared, threatened to cancel next month's barbecue over tension." I nodded. "Control the joy, control the crowd." He hesitated. "Look, I didn't tell you yesterday, but Karen came to my house last night. Said the board's considering legal action for harassment." "Of who?" "She said you're spreading misinformation." I exhaled slowly. "Did she threaten you?" He swallowed. "Just hinted that maybe my landscaping variance could be reviewed." Of course she did. For a long second I looked at him, an honest man shrinking under bureaucratic weight. "Evan, listen carefully. Don't lie for her. Don't lie for me either. Just keep the truth somewhere safe. You might need it." He nodded, nervous but resolute. At noon, I drove to the county building and safety division, a squat beige building that smelled like paper and coffee burnt to tar. Inside, a clerk in glasses barely glanced up. "Permitting or inspection?" she asked. "Neither," I said. "I need to report a possible code violation approved by an HOA variance." Her fingers paused over the keyboard. "You're the homeowner?" "Yes, Daniel Rios, Lot 7, Alder Court," she typed. "Variance code?" I handed her a printed copy. "Signed by HOA Chair Karen Pike. It overrides step height requirements. Unsafe construction," she read, brows rising. "This is unusual. HOAs can't override building code. They can only enforce aesthetic standards." "That's what I thought," I said quietly. She scanned the papers. "You said someone was injured?" "My wife, pregnant. We have medical documentation." Her tone shifted from bureaucratic to careful. "I'll log this under formal safety complaint. Inspector will visit within 72 hours. I thanked her and left, feeling the rare, grounded calm of an engineer solving a structural problem. Inputs, outputs, verifiable results. That night, a new email, urgent HOA response to county inquiry. Karen wasn't wasting time. The message dripped professionalism. The Rios family has filed a baseless complaint misrepresenting the HOA's procedures. The variance was compliant with all aesthetic guidelines. Any injury claims are unrelated to HOA-approved structures. At the bottom, all communications are subject to board review. Lena leaned over my shoulder, reading. "She's cornered." "Not yet," I said. "But she's rattled. That means she's scared. What if she makes things worse?" I met her eyes. "Then we do what I do best. We build support structures." 2 days later, the county inspector arrived, a middle-aged man named Ortiz, boots dusty, clipboard under one arm. "Mr. Rios?" "That's me." He surveyed the porch with practiced eyes, measuring tape flicking out like a snake's tongue. "You weren't kidding. 8.5 here, 7 there. That's a trip hazard." He tested the handrail. "Sturdy work. Should have been installed by the builder." I nodded. "HOA fined me for it." Ortiz frowned. "They can't fine for safety compliance, only for aesthetics." I smiled thinly. "That's what I'm documenting." Karen's car rolled up mid-inspection. She stepped out fast, heels sharp on pavement. "Excuse me, this is private property under HOA jurisdiction." Ortiz straightened. "Ma'am, county authority supersedes HOA for safety review." Her lips twitched. "You'll find no violations." He handed her his card. "We already have." She stared at him, stunned, then looked at me like I detonated something. "You think this makes you right?" "It makes my wife safe," I said. Karen turned on her heel and left, phone already to her ear. Ortiz scribbled notes. We'll send a formal report within a week. They'll have to correct the variance or face fines. Thank you, I said. He shrugged. Just doing my job. But you'd be surprised how many of these HOA folks think they're above county code. When he drove off, I looked at the steward's bell again, the crack spreading a little farther down its frame. The metal creaked softly in the breeze, like the neighborhood itself was ready to split. Back inside, Lena was on the couch, the cat curled against her leg. How'd it go? Better than I hoped, she smiled faintly. Maybe they'll back off. I shook my head. Karen won't. She's not done yet. Because people like her don't retreat, they regroup. And if she was regrouping, I'd need more than measurements. I'd need allies. The next phase wasn't about codes or paperwork. It was about people. And one of them already carried guilt heavy enough to tip the scales. Evan Cho. He just didn't know it yet. By the weekend, Alder Court had gone quiet in that uneasy pre-storm way. The HOA chat was buzzing, but the sidewalks were empty. Curtains twitched when I stepped outside. People waved less and whispered more. That's how control works. It teaches everyone to look down. Karen hadn't called since the inspector's visit, but her silence felt louder than any threat. The steward's bell hung above the entryway, like a cracked omen. Every time the wind blew, it made a faint metallic groan, half whistle, half warning. Lena sat on the porch swing, one leg tucked under her blanket. You're pacing again, she said gently. Just thinking? About Karen? About next steps? I smiled faintly. Pun intended. She rolled her eyes, but there was warmth behind it. You already won one battle. Let it breathe. Winning isn't the goal, I said. Fixing is. Before I could say more, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Mr. Rios, a voice said. This is Inspector Ortiz. Yes? Just giving you a heads up. The HOA filed an appeal to dispute our findings. They're claiming you falsified measurements. I laughed once, dry. Falsified? I used a laser tape. Not my call, Ortiz said. But you might want to gather supporting witnesses. When the line went dead, I stared at the phone like it had just handed me a blueprint for war. That evening, I walked across the street to Evan's house. His garage was open, country music playing low. The smell of motor oil and citrus cleaner thick in the air. He froze when he saw me, rag in hand. Hey, Daniel, he said cautiously. I held up a hand. Not here to argue. I just need 5 minutes. He exhaled. I figured this was coming. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. The county confirmed the porch is unsafe. Karen appealed. She's trying to claim I faked evidence. He grimaced. That's serious. She's using the same neighbors she's been intimidating to sign affidavits against me. He wiped his hands on a towel. And you want me to tell the truth, I said. Just what you saw. He looked down at his boots. Karen cornered me again. Said if I back you, I'll lose my maintenance variance. You know I can't afford that right now. I stepped closer, softer this time. Evan, you have a son in college. You're raising him to be honest, right? He met my eyes then, just for a second, raw and guilty. Yeah. Then show him how honesty looks when it costs something. He hesitated, chewing the inside of his cheek. Let me think. You already are, I said, and left him standing in the halo of his garage light, torn between decency and fear. The next day I filed a request for public access to HOA financials. Every member had that right, though few used it. Karen's grip on information was her true weapon, but transparency, once pried open, doesn't close easily. 2 hours later, I got an automated reply. Records request received. Estimated response time, 14 business days. That gave me time to plan. I opened a spreadsheet, cataloging every fine, variance, and appeal Karen had processed in the past year. There were patterns, selective enforcement, identical template wording, and repeated approvals for properties linked to a single contractor. Brightview exterior design. I Googled. Brightview's owner? Michael Pike. Her brother. I felt the hair rise on my arms. There it was, her pressure point. Conflict of interest wasn't just unethical, it was disqualifying. I leaned back, adrenaline steady, but cold. Got you, I whispered. At dinner, Lena pushed her peas around her plate, watching me think. You found something? Maybe. Promise me one thing, she said softly. No shouting matches, no more ER trips. I promise, I said. This isn't about rage, it's about proof. She smiled faintly. Proof is your love language. Only when someone lies in numbers, I said, grinning. The next HOA bulletin hit at dawn. Members are reminded to respect board authority and avoid spreading misinformation regarding community management. Unfounded accusations harm everyone. Underneath, meeting scheduled. Tuesday, 6 p.m. Topic: Code Compliance Review. I knew that tone. It was Karen tightening her grip, pretending confidence while the walls shifted. I walked to the gate, staring at the steward's bell. The crack had widened another inch, orange rust bleeding like an open wound. I took out my phone and filmed it, the wind rocking the bell with a slow, eerie groan. If the bell was the symbol of their order, then that crack was the truth they refused to see. And Tuesday, I'd make sure everyone else did. The night before the meeting, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house felt like a question. Lena's breathing beside me was steady, the rhythm of someone trying to heal, but my mind was pacing even when my body wasn't. I got up, slipped outside, and sat on the porch. The air smelled like wet mulch and ozone. Streetlights hummed. The steward's bell loomed at the gate, that crack catching the glow like a scar. It had started as a symbol of unity. Now it was a fracture line through the whole community. I opened my notebook, engineer's habit, and listed what I had. County inspector's report, unsafe variance. HOA email chain showing Karen's signature. Financial link to Brightview. Exterior design, her brother's company. Evan's half promise to tell the truth. Photos and timestamps of everything. Then I wrote the only thing I didn't have. Trust. Tuesday, 6:01 p.m. Sharp, the community hall filled fast. Folding chairs squeaked. Conversations buzzed low and nervous. Karen stood near the podium in a crisp navy suit, hair pulled tight, clipboard clutched like a weapon. A banner behind her read, "Preserving Harmony in Alder Court." The irony hit like static. Lena insisted on coming, despite my protest. She wore a soft gray sweater that made her look fragile but firm. If they see me, they'll remember I'm real, she'd said. Evan was already there, sitting halfway back, his spaniel parked at his feet under the chair. He wouldn't meet my eyes, but he didn't look away either. That counted. Karen banged the gavel, 3 sharp cracks that silenced the hum. Let's begin, she said. Tonight's meeting concerns a resident's repeated violations, defamatory statements, and obstruction of board operations. No name needed. Everyone looked at me. I stood before she could start her speech. I'd like to respond. Karen's eyes narrowed. Mr. Rios, you'll have your turn after the board review. Actually, I said, pulling out the folder, since this involves a county ruling, it's part of public record. A ripple of whispers. Karen's lips twitched. Sit down, Mr. Rios. I didn't. The county confirmed that our porch steps were unsafe. They found that the HOA, under your leadership, approved a variance that violated building code. One of the board members, Linda, frowned. Karen, is that accurate? Karen's smile tightened. The variance was for aesthetic elevation. The code, I interrupted, sliding a printed report onto the projector. The code isn't optional, and the variance was signed by you 6 months before closing, approving non-conforming construction. That's a legal safety violation, not an aesthetic one. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Someone in the back whispered, Is that why the inspector came? Karen straightened. Mr. Rios is manipulating technicalities. This is harassment. I took a slow step closer. You want to talk about harassment? You fined a pregnant woman for a handrail that kept her from falling on your defective stairs. You kicked her when she nearly did. The room froze. Even the air conditioner clicked off like it couldn't stand the tension. Karen's face blanched, then flushed crimson. That's a lie. Evan, I said, turning. Tell them what you saw. He looked down, knuckles white around the leash. The dog whimpered. Evan, I repeated, quieter this time. Please. Karen's voice cracked sharp. Don't you dare drag neighbors into your delusions. Evan stood slowly, clearing his throat. I I saw her lose balance and her foot hit Lena's stomach. It didn't look intentional, but it happened. Gasps, soft but audible. A neighbor whispered, "Oh my God." Karen's pen clattered onto the table. "That's slander." "It's the truth," Evan said, voice trembling but solid. For a moment, nobody moved. The sound of the old bell creaked faintly through the open door, as if the wind itself was listening. I lifted another document from the folder. While we're on the topic of truth, these are HOA financial records. Every landscaping contract for the past year went to Brightview Exterior Design. Karen blinked. "So?" "Owned by your brother, Michael Pike. No competitive bidding, no disclosure to members. That's conflict of interest and a violation of HOA bylaws." The board members exchanged looks. Linda whispered something to the man typing minutes. His eyes went wide. Karen's voice faltered. "You're twisting," I cut her off. "The variance, the fines, the intimidation, it all traces back to protecting a bad build. You abused authority to hide it." The silence that followed was thick enough to touch. Finally, Linda spoke. "We'll need to review this immediately," Karen snapped. "You don't have that authority." Linda's eyes hardened. "Actually, we do. The bylaws grant power to suspend a chair pending investigation." A murmur of approval spread. Karen's composure cracked for real this time. "You're making a mistake." I stepped back, voice low. "No, you did." Lena squeezed my hand as I sat beside her again. Her palm was warm. "You didn't yell," she whispered. "I didn't have to," I said. "The numbers did." At the front, Linda announced, "Effective immediately. Karen Pike is suspended as acting chair pending audit review." The gavel came down once, heavy, final. Outside, the wind picked up. The steward's bell shuddered, then gave a deep, hollow clang. The crack split a little wider, echoing down Alder Court like judgment itself. The next 48 hours were chaos wrapped in polite emails. Karen's suspension rippled through Alder Court like a cracked window. Nobody wanted to touch it, but everyone could feel the draft. I spent the morning pacing between my office and the porch, waiting for the county's formal report. Lena watched from the couch, knitting something tiny and green for the baby. Every click of her needles sounded steadier than my heartbeat. "Are you nervous?" she asked without looking up. "Not nervous," I said. "Just waiting for gravity to catch up." "You mean Karen?" "She's not done," I said. "She never quits when she's cornered." That afternoon, my phone buzzed. Evan Cho. I answered on the first ring. "Hey." "Daniel," he said, voice low. "You need to know something. Karen's meeting with Brightview at the clubhouse tonight. Her brother's there. She told him the board suspension is temporary, and she's going to bury you in paperwork." Her words. "Are you sure?" "I heard it through the office vent. I was fixing the irrigation timer." I paused. "You're telling me this, knowing she'll find out?" "Yeah," he said. "Guess I'm tired of pretending she runs this place." "Evan," I said quietly, "that's brave. Don't make it a big thing. Just do something with it before she does." The line clicked off. That night, I parked 2 houses down from the clubhouse, engine off. The windows glowed inside, a dull amber. Shadows moved against the blinds. I could hear muffled voices, Karen's sharper than the rest. "County can't dictate aesthetics," she snapped. Then a man's voice, gravelly, annoyed. "They can when it's tied to safety, Karen. You drag me into this mess." "That handrail makes us look negligent," she said. "If we remove it now, it's admission of fault." "It is fault," he growled. "Your signature's on that variance." Silence. Then Karen hissed. "I can fix this. I still have influence. The new acting chair owes me favors." I pressed record on my phone. Her words bled through the static, every syllable an anchor. I didn't need to confront her yet. I just needed the rope. When I got home, Lena was waiting by the door. "Please tell me you didn't go picking a fight." "No fight," I said, showing her the recording. "Just evidence." She exhaled. "You're building a case. I'm building a structure. She just doesn't realize she's part of it." The next morning, the county report arrived. Formal language stamped in blue ink. Confirmed structural non-compliance. Corrective order issued to Alder Court, HOA. That was it. The turning point. I printed 5 copies and slid one under Linda's door, one to the HOA mailbox, and kept one for the record. By noon, my inbox lit up with an emergency meeting notice. Community Safety Compliance Update, 6 p.m. This time, the board called it, not Karen. At 6, the hall was packed. Neighbors who'd avoided eye contact for weeks now leaned forward, whispering. Evan sat near the front, this time with his shoulders squared. The new acting chair, Linda, adjusted her glasses and called the meeting to order. First, she said, the county has confirmed the porch at Lot 7 is non-compliant and must be repaired at the HOA's expense. The board accepts responsibility. Applause rippled through the room, soft, hesitant, then growing. Karen sat near the back, arms crossed tight. Her face was pale but composed, like a storm bottled behind glass. Linda continued. Additionally, our audit found irregularities in contractor selection. Effective immediately, Brightview Exterior Designs contracts are suspended pending review. Gasps. Karen's jaw clenched. This is retaliation, she said sharply. It's accountability, Linda replied. Karen stood. You're all fools if you think she pointed at me, cares about this community. He's just vindictive. I rose slowly. I care enough to build what lasts, I said. You cared enough to hide what cracks. She took a step forward. You think anyone will thank you for tearing this place apart? I'm not tearing it apart, I said. I'm rebuilding it straight. The silence after that was long and heavy, and then Evan stood, clearing his throat. He's right. We've all been scared of her for years. It's time we weren't. A chorus of agreement followed, tentative but real. Karen's eyes swept the room, searching for an ally and finding none. Her clipboard trembled in her hand. Then she turned and walked out, the door slamming so hard the steward's bell outside gave a single mournful clang. Linda exhaled. Meeting adjourned. Applause again, louder this time, echoing off the walls. Lena squeezed my arm, whispering, You did it. Not yet, I said softly. We've still got to fix the stairs. Outside, the sunset bled gold over the rooftops. The bell swayed gently in the wind, the crack glinting like a healed scar. For the first time in months, Alder Court felt level again. By Thursday morning, Alder Court was humming with a strange new energy, half relief, half gossip. The group chat that used to be Karen's echo chamber now buzzed with photos of volunteers repainting the community sign and offers to help fix Daniel's porch. It was awkward but earnest, like a neighborhood remembering how to breathe. Lena smiled watching the messages. You turn mutiny into maintenance day, she said. Not me, I said, spreading blueprint copies across the dining table. The truth did. I'd already started sketching a redesign for the porch, new riser heights, reinforced treads, a proper foundation tie-in. It wasn't just about us anymore. The HOA would use the plans to repair every defective stoop on the block. Evan stopped by mid-morning, still in his maintenance uniform. He held out a folded letter. I figured you should know. Karen's lawyer sent this to the board. I opened it, legalese thick as molasses, defamation, professional misconduct, emotional distress, standard intimidation. She's suing? I asked. Trying, he said. But the board hired their own attorney. They're backing you, Daniel. People are tired of her threats. He shifted on his feet. I also wanted to thank you. My kid saw the meeting video, said I finally looked like someone who stood up. I grinned. That's the best kind of legacy. Yeah, he said quietly. It feels like breathing again. That afternoon, a White County truck pulled up. Inspector Ortiz stepped out, clipboard in hand, hard hat dangling from his wrist. Came to check the repairs, he said. They're approved, I told him, handing over my drawings. He studied the sketches. Clean work. You do this for a living? Structural engineering, I said. I try to make things hold weight, literally and otherwise. He chuckled. Good philosophy. The HOA will need to submit proof of compliance once this is done. But from what I see, you're setting the standard. He tapped the cracked steward's bell with his pen. You know, that thing's a hazard too. I noticed, I said. It's symbolic, though. People might not want to take it down. He smiled faintly. Then, at least fix the bracket before it falls on somebody's car. As he drove off, I stared at the bell. its split line catching sunlight. Maybe fixing it was the next step, a way to seal the story instead of ending it in tension. By evening, the new HOA leadership hosted a community walk. Residents moved in small clusters, finally talking about things that had festered in silence: broken sidewalks, drainage issues, tree roots under driveways. I joined with Lena and Evan, both walking slower than usual, both smiling in that fragile way that comes after a storm. A woman I barely knew, Pam from Lot 12, approached with a clipboard. "We're collecting signatures to reform the bylaws, term limits for board positions." I nodded, signing. "About time." She laughed. "Karen was the reason we needed it. You were the reason we realized it." The crowd drifted toward the gate where the steward's bell stood. Linda climbed the short stone base with a wrench in her hand. "We're rehanging this properly," she announced. "No shortcuts this time." I stepped forward. "Mind if I help?" "Please," she said. Together we loosened the cracked bracket, bolts squealing like old arguments. The bell swayed gently, light breaking across its bronze skin. When it finally came free, the wind caught the hollow tone one last time, a single clear note that hung and faded. "We'll mount it right this time," Linda said. "Level and true," I replied. The neighbors clapped quietly. Lena's eyes shimmered. Even Evan's spaniel barked once like punctuation. Later, under porch light, I poured 2 mugs of tea. Lena settled beside me, resting her head on my shoulder. "You ever think," she said softly, "that maybe the fight wasn't about the porch at all?" I looked down at her hand resting on her belly. "Maybe it never is. Sometimes the fight's about showing people what steady looks like when everything's shaking." The night breeze lifted, and from the gate came the faint sound of the bell being rehung. New bracket, new bolts, new balance. It didn't sound broken anymore. The following week was quiet in the way only aftermaths can be. Emails shifted from threats to thank yous. The HOA website finally removed Karen's name from the leadership tab, and the steward's bell hung straight again, its tone clean when the wind caught it. But I knew better than to think it was over. Karen Pike didn't vanish. People like her reappear when silence grows comfortable. I was reviewing porch blueprints in my office when my phone buzzed. Private number. I answered out of habit. Her voice slid through the line like ice. "Enjoying your victory, engineer?" "Karen, don't sound surprised." "I'm not. Just disappointed you didn't learn anything." "I learned plenty," she said. "You humiliated me. You cost my brother contracts. You think they'll keep you here after the lawsuits start piling in?" "Threats again?" I said. "That worked so well last time." "You think this neighborhood's better off without order?" I took a breath. "Order isn't control. It's balance. You broke that." Silence, then a brittle laugh. "You'll see, Daniel. People like you build, but people like me decide what stands." The line clicked dead. I stared at the phone for a long moment, then opened a new folder on my desktop. Evidence, Pike Communications. If she wanted to keep playing, I'd keep documenting. That afternoon, Linda called. "Just a heads up, Karen filed a motion to reinstate herself as chair pending arbitration. We are responding through counsel." "On what grounds?" "Improper board procedure," Linda said. "Classic bluff. But it means we'll need to testify if this escalates." I nodded slowly. "Then let's make sure the record's airtight." I spent the next few days combing through every correspondence. Emails, inspection notes, variance forms. Every timestamp told the same story. Negligence disguised as authority. By Friday, I'd built a timeline so detailed it could have been a construction schedule. Lena leaned over my shoulder. "You really can't turn it off, can you?" "Engineers don't sleep," I said. "We calibrate." She smiled. "Maybe that's why I married you." Saturday morning brought a different kind of knock, soft, hesitant. I opened the door to find Evan, hands jammed in his jacket pockets. "She called me too," he said. "Karen?" "Yeah. Offered to forgive my landscaping fines if I retract my statement." "Did you?" He shook his head. "Told her I'm done covering for anyone." I nodded. "That's brave," he exhaled. "Feels less brave and more necessary." He looked past me toward the porch. "Funny thing, though. When she called, she said she was meeting with a reporter next week. Claimed the media might re-examine the narrative." "Media?" I asked. Some local station. She wants to tell her side. That's when the idea hit me. Not anger, not panic. Strategy. If she wanted exposure, I'd give it to her, just not in the way she planned. The following Monday, I emailed Linda. Subject, public transparency proposal. Recommend live streaming future board meetings for accountability. Also propose community Q&A to rebuild trust. Transparency will neutralize misinformation. Her reply was immediate. Approved. Let's make it happen. The announcement went out that afternoon. Alder Court HOA introduces open digital forum. All members welcome. Karen's response came minutes later in the group chat. This circus undermines our dignity. No serious association conducts business on camera. Someone replied with a single comment. Maybe that's the point. Tuesday evening, I tested the webcam setup in the community hall. Microphone check, lighting balanced. The same hall where Karen had once ruled by gavel now glowed with LED panels and a live stream counter ticking upward. Lena sat in the front row, smiling faintly. You're turning bureaucracy into broadcast. Sunlight's the best disinfectant, I said. At 6 p.m., the meeting went live. Linda introduced updates, porch repairs underway, new bylaws drafted, conflict of interest policy implemented. Then she opened the floor for questions. Karen appeared in the doorway, late, uninvited, but predictably theatrical. The camera caught her silhouette perfectly. She stepped forward, voice loud enough for the mic. How dare you exploit this community for your vanity project? I turned to her calmly. Hi, Karen. Would you like to address the board? Her eyes flicked to the camera lens, realizing too late that every word streamed live. This is a smear campaign, she barked. He's manipulating you all with technical jargon and pity. I lifted a single page, her signed variance approval, and held it toward the camera. This is your signature, correct? She froze. That's private board business. It became public the moment you endangered residents, I said. The chat feed on the live stream exploded with comments. Wow. She's done. About time. Karen's face drained of color. She turned without another word and walked out again, the door clicking shut behind her. For a long moment, the room was silent. Then Linda said softly, Motion to permanently remove Karen Pike from the board. Unanimous vote. After the meeting, Lena squeezed my hand. That was surgical. Transparency always is, I said. Outside, the night breeze carried the soft chime of the steward's bell, no longer cracked, just steady. The metal rang once, clean and round, as if the neighborhood itself had finally exhaled. The battle had moved from my porch to the public, and this time, the whole community stood on level ground. The day after the live stream, Alder Court felt different, like pressure released from a sealed pipe. The HOA inbox overflowed with resident emails, some thanking the board, others shocked that it took this long for someone to stop Karen. By noon, a local news van parked near the gate. The steward's bell gleamed behind them, straight and uncracked now, a perfect backdrop for poetic justice. A reporter with a practiced smile walked up my drive. Mr. Rios, Sarah Valdez, Channel 8. Investigates, we're covering the HOA. Reforms here on Alder Court. I hesitated. You sure you're not here for Karen's version? She smiled, professional and sharp. We already got her version. But your meeting video went viral overnight. Over 100,000 views. People are calling it the HOA takedown. Lena peeked from the porch, blanket around her shoulders. He's still not used to being a headline. Sarah laughed. Then let's just talk facts, off camera first. We sat at the patio table. I told her everything. How the handrail fine started, how Karen kicked Lena, how every citation tied back to the variance. I showed her the county report, the conflict of interest proof, and the HOA's public reforms. When I finished, she sat quiet for a moment. You realize this could change how HOAs operate statewide, right? I just wanted my wife safe on her own porch, I said. The rest built itself. The segment aired that night. The intro clip showed the cracked bell before repair, slow pan across our street, then my voice. Order isn't control, it's balance. And when balance breaks, somebody has to rebuild it. They cut to Karen's pre-taped interview, her eyes darting, tone brittle. This is a witch hunt. Rules exist for a reason. If people can't follow them, what's the point of community? Then back to footage of our neighbors repainting the sign, the bell ringing clean again. Sometimes, the reporter narrated, community starts when one person refuses to be quiet. Lena cried when it aired, quiet tears, proud ones. That's our story, she whispered, except it's everyone's now. The next morning, my email filled with messages. Old army buddies, engineering colleagues, strangers from other towns. One read, "We had a Karen on our board too. You just gave us the playbook." Another, "Can you send your appeal templates? We're starting our own vote." It was surreal. I'd gone from code compliance nerd to reluctant symbol of resistance. Evan stopped by, holding 2 coffees. "You're famous," he grinned. "Not the kind I wanted," I said, accepting the cup. He laughed. "You kidding? My kid made a meme of Karen's face when you held up that paper. Went viral on TikTok." I shook my head. God help us. "Don't worry," he said. "She's lawyer shopping now, but nobody wants the case." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the morning light spill across the repaired stairs. The rail gleamed, polished, level, steady. "You know," Evan said, "that bell doesn't sound the same anymore." "Because it's straight now," I said. "Cracks make tone richer, but weaker. Ours is stronger, even if it's less dramatic." He nodded. "Kinda like us." By that weekend, the HOA hosted a restoration day. Families brought food, kids chalked the sidewalks, even the board laughed like normal humans. Linda gave a short speech about transparency and community. Then she called Lena and me up front. Lena squeezed my hand, whispering, "You first, hero." I laughed under my breath. "You're the one who took the hit." Linda handed me a small plaque. "For integrity and service, Alder Court, 2025. The crowd clapped, genuine this time. Even the air felt lighter. Then, just as the applause quieted, a single metallic tone rang out from the gate. The steward's bell, perfectly pitched. Kids clapped, adults smiled. "Guess it finally found its voice," Lena said. "Or maybe we finally listened," I answered. That night, after everyone left, I walked to the gate one last time. The bell swung gently, moonlight catching the new bolts. Beneath it, the engraved plaque still read, "Preserving Harmony." I ran my thumb along the words. "Harmony's not silence," I murmured. "It's balance under tension." From behind me, Lena's voice floated soft and steady. "Then I think we're finally in tune." I turned, and for the first time since the first violation notice, the street behind her looked exactly as it should. Ordinary, peaceful, alive. The handrail gleamed under the porch light like a promise kept. Next came the court date for Karen's final appeal, and this time, she'd be the one facing the judge's chair. The courthouse lobby smelled faintly of lemon polish and nerves. Every sound echoed, heels, whispers, the faint shuffle of papers. Lena sat beside me, hands folded over her lap, her belly round now, our child restless beneath her calm. She wore the same gray sweater she'd worn to the HOA showdown. "Full circle?" she said softly. "Yeah," I murmured, staring through the glass at the morning light spilling over the courthouse steps. Only this time, the gavel's not hers. Karen Pike arrived 5 minutes late, flanked by a lawyer in an overstarched suit. She looked smaller than I remembered, not in height, but in presence. The armor of authority was gone. Her eyes darted toward us, then away. Evan stood near the back of the hall, hands jammed in his pockets, waiting to be called as a witness. When our eyes met, he gave a small nod. The same quiet courage that had cracked her grip was still there. Inside, the courtroom felt sterile and bright. The judge, a woman with silver hair and steel-rimmed glasses, spoke in tones sharp enough to cut through pretense. "Case number 245071, Pike versus Alder Court Homeowners Association and Daniel Rios. Claims of defamation, unlawful interference, and emotional distress." Karen's lawyer stood first, voice smooth as lacquer. "Your Honor, my client was subject to malicious targeting. Mr. Rios manipulated HOA members, staged a false narrative, and caused irreparable harm to Ms. Pike's reputation." I watched Karen's jaw tighten, her fingers twitch against the table. the same rhythm her pen used to tap when she wrote citations. The judge raised an eyebrow. "And your evidence?" He gestured toward the screen where their presentation played. Clips from the live stream, screenshots of my posts, and a few edited snippets of Karen's old emails taken wildly out of context. This demonstrates the intentional campaign to destroy her credibility. My attorney, a calm, sandy-haired woman named Ruiz, rose next. "Your Honor, if I may." She pulled up our exhibits. Unedited footage of the same meeting, the variance documents with Karen's signature, the county's code violation report, and finally, the recording Evan had captured of Karen's conversation with her brother. Her voice was measured but surgical. Ms. Pike was not defamed, she was exposed. The variance she approved led to unsafe conditions. Mr. Rios acted not with malice, but necessity. The judge listened without expression, scrolling through documents. "This recording, is it authenticated?" "Yes, Your Honor, provided voluntarily by a witness who was present." She nodded slowly. "Play it." Karen's voice filled the courtroom. "I can fix this. I still have influence. The new acting chair owes me favors." Then her brother. "Your signature's on that variance." The room went very still. Even the fluorescent hum seemed to pause. Karen shot to her feet. That was a private conversation. The judge's gaze was ice, and yet very relevant. When Evan took the stand, his hands trembled only once, at the start. "I saw what happened that day," he said firmly. "It wasn't an accident, maybe not rage, but frustration, and it hurt someone who didn't deserve it." He looked at Lena when he said that. She gave a small nod in return. Karen's lawyer tried to trip him up. "You admit you're friendly with the defendant?" "Friendly now," Evan said. "Back then, I was scared of her. That's the point." A faint murmur rippled through the room, the kind that always follows a truth spoken plainly. By the time closing arguments ended, the air felt heavier, full of everything that had been waiting to fall. The judge folded her hands. "Ms. Pike," she said, "HOA boards are meant to serve their communities, not control them. Your conduct, approving unsafe structures, retaliating against members, and intimidating witnesses, exceeds negligence. It's abuse of authority." Karen's lawyer started to object, but she lifted a hand. "The court denies your claims. Damages are awarded to the HOA to recover legal fees. Mr. Rios, you're dismissed with thanks for your diligence in ensuring public safety." Her gavel struck once, sharp, final. Karen didn't move at first. Then quietly she gathered her papers, shaking hands, unfocused eyes, and walked out through the side door without looking back. Outside, the sun had climbed high, hot on the courthouse steps. Evan joined us at the bottom, grinning faintly. "Justice served," he said. "Not justice," I replied. "Just balance, finally." Lena leaned against me, breathing deep. "You think she'll stop now?" "She'll fade," I said. "People like her always do, once no one's listening." Evan chuckled. "Well, people are listening now, to you." I looked out across the courthouse plaza, the lines of the railings, the symmetry of the steps, every angle square and true. It reminded me of home, of that handrail I'd built to keep my wife safe. Sometimes structures fail quietly for years before someone measures the tilt. Sometimes all it takes is one steady hand to rebuild the balance. As we walked back to the car, Lena stopped, eyes bright. "Feel that?" she said. "The wind?" She smiled. The baby kicked. For a moment, everything else fell away. The noise, the tension, the courtroom echoes, until all that remained was life, strong and real, kicking back against the world. The morning after the court ruling, Alder Court woke to sunlight so clean it almost looked new. Someone had left a basket of muffins on our porch with a note that simply read, "Thank you for standing tall." The handwriting was neat and careful. Linda's, probably. Lena leaned in the doorway, hand resting on her stomach. "You think we can finally just live here?" "Maybe," I said, "or at least stop defending it." The street looked normal again. Sprinklers ticking, kids on bikes, the hum of a lawnmower down the block. But underneath that calm ran something sturdier, quieter. Accountability. It wasn't dramatic like the meetings or the court. It was structure, rebuilt from the inside out. By noon, neighbors started arriving one by one. Evan brought coffee. Pam from Lot 12 carried a folding table. Someone rolled in a speaker and started playing soft guitar music. We figured, Linda said, smiling. Since the HOA funds aren't going toward lawsuits anymore, we'd throw a little peace picnic. Lena laughed. Now that's a bylaw I can get behind. The bell at the gate caught the light. Bright bronze, perfectly level. Kids took turns ringing it, the clear note scattering across lawns. The sound used to make me tense. Now it made me breathe easier. I stood near the table, paper cup in hand, watching people who once avoided eye contact sit together, laugh, share food. Evan waved me over. Guess you're the unofficial project manager now, he said. I prefer consultant, I grinned. He chuckled. Well, consultant, we've got a list of real issues to fix. Drainage, streetlights, mailboxes. Think you can draw up a plan? That's my language, I said. He looked at Lena, then back at me. And Daniel? Yeah? Thanks for making this a place worth staying. Later, after the crowd thinned, I walked to the steward's bell. The plaque beneath it had been re-engraved. Preserving Harmony, Rebuilt 2025. I traced the letters, feeling the ridges beneath my fingertips. Proof that something once cracked could be repaired, not hidden. The metal rang softly as I brushed it, steady and full. Behind me, Lena called out, Ortiz dropped off a note. I turned. She held up an envelope from the county. I opened it, certification of compliance. Our porch officially met every safety and aesthetic standard. Signed, sealed. I laughed, a long, honest sound I hadn't felt in months. We're legal. We're safe, she corrected, smiling. There's a difference. That evening, as dusk settled, the porch lights flicked on across the street like a chain reaction. Little pockets of calm. Lena sat in the glider chair we'd once bought secondhand, rocking slow, her belly rising under her sweater. I keep thinking about her, she said quietly. Karen. Me too, I admitted. She built this world of rules because she needed control. Maybe she forgot people don't live by checklists. Maybe she'll learn, I said. Or maybe she'll move somewhere that still lets her pretend. We both smiled at that, not cruelly, just tired. She looked out at the repaired steps. You know, if she hadn't gone after us, none of this would have changed. I've thought about that, I said. Sometimes conflict's just demolition before construction. Lena nodded. Then we built something better. The wind shifted. The bell gave a low, easy chime. Not the sharp crack of warning, but the kind of sound that lingers like a heartbeat. I took her hand. Someday we'll tell the baby this story, I said. Not about the fight, but about how we stood up, how the sound of that bell used to mean fear, and how we made it mean home. She squeezed my fingers. You'll over-explain it with blueprints, she teased. Probably, I said, but they'll understand what level feels like. We sat there until the stars blinked on. Quiet, even, earned. What would you do if the rules meant to protect your home became the weapon that threatened it? Would you stand up even if it cost your peace, to rebuild something stronger? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe, because some fights don't end in court. They end in the place you call home.